Right now, let's turn to some music. We've had our sacred music this morning, and I think for Easter afternoon, music should have a touch of gaiety, especially when we have a distinguished artist on hand to perform. We have flamenco guitarist Fernando Servent, who just began an engagement at the Stanhope Hotel on Upper Fifth Avenue. Mr. Servent will play one of his original compositions, Peruca.
We'll have more entertainment and more guests and a check with the weather girl, who's mighty important today, I'll tell you, in just a moment. But as you know, Easter is photogenic inside or out. And here are some camera tips from Fred Scott.
You know, good pictures are no accident. Place a roll of film in one camera, take a picture. Place the same roll in another camera, take the same subject at the same time, and you'll get two distinctly different results. Of course, the camera makes the difference. The difference between an ordinary snapshot and a picture that's worth keeping. A negative that can produce a sharp enlargement. A color slide that you're proud to project. Put a roll of film in a Praktika and you're set for a luxury camera experience. Whatever the occasion, family pictures, scenic shots, just raise your Praktika to your eye, sight, and shoot. Yes, sir, you'll be amazed. Picture after picture will be crisp, sharp, professional quality. And it'll give you a lifetime memory record. You'll get exactly the picture you see because you're sighting through the lens. With the Praktika two-way viewing is a prime feature at eye level, through this prismatic finder for exciting action pictures, at your waist for perfect composition control. The Praktika lenses are the finest known today. Each lens comes direct from the old world, center of master craftsmen. Their art of precision optics have been handed down generation after generation. Now, these are but a few of the luxury features to be found in the Praktika. A visit to Willoughby's and any of their salesmen will be pleased to demonstrate top-value, popular-priced Praktika cameras. Now, the makers of Praktika are proud to present the Praktina, the camera of the future you'll want to own today. And these are the Praktina accessories that make for the most valued team in the photographic world. Amateurs aspire to the Praktina, an amazingly versatile camera. Men in industry, medicine, and science all find the Praktina an important part of their everyday equipment. So trade up to a Praktina or a Praktika. Willoughby's makes it possible with their liberal allowances on used equipment. You can buy now and pay over a 12-month period and no money down if desired. Willoughby's invite you to visit this week. See the Praktika Praktina cameras. Either will give you more for your money, a lifetime of photographic enjoyment.
Well, there's Fifth Avenue and the Easter Parade. One lonely parader, a hardy soul, in raincoat and an umbrella. Not much of a parade today. I guess I'm glad we're all inside. One of the most industrious workers at the New York Post is sports columnist Leonard Coppet. And today, Leonard Coppet has what is perhaps the biggest story of the day, the weather, and he has one of the most important girls in the television industry as far as weather is concerned to talk with, Janet Tyler. Leonard?
Janet, in my business, sports that is, weather is a constant factor in our minds. It's always a question of whether you're going to get rained out or whether you're going to get out of town or into town by air on account of the weather. But I imagine to you it's even more important than that.
Well, Leonard and I have been sort of putting our heads together, and I find out he really worries about the weather. I sort of, if things don't go right with the weather, I just say it's his fault, that guy at the Weather Bureau, Mr. Christie. But I do want to say to all you gals today, here in New York and everywhere, don't feel too bad, because this is a terribly bad storm. This is my beat weather, and I called the Weather Bureau this morning, and I said, what is this? And they said it's a big low in Illinois, so the women in Chicago, Pittsburgh, Detroit, Cleveland, Washington, D.C., way down to the Carolinas are all having the same trouble that we are here. But Leonard and I put our heads together on this subject, and we have weather stories, little oddities. And one thing I've discovered over the years is that certain people think that there should be a weather forecaster in the dugouts at baseball games because of the fact that a pitcher, his ball is dependent on the wind and the humidity and all kinds of things like that. And Leonard had an interesting answer.
Well, it's true that all these things are factors. The only reason I don't think a lot of weather forecasters are going to get jobs out of it is that baseball players know this from the time they're about 4 years old when they start playing ball. Instead of looking at a lot of barometers and other scientific instruments, Yogi just goes out to the mound and says, don't throw the curve no more.
Yeah.
Because it isn't working today.
You know, this business of fashion, and he has a story about what people wear to do the weather. So we really did this bit very well. I was kind of fascinated to find out what the gals used to do about at the turn of the century, to give you an old-fashioned Easter story. So I went to the Herald Tribune, and I found that in the year 1901, there was practically nothing on the pages of the Herald Tribune regarding Easter parades and hats and things like that, which I thought was rather odd but interesting. But there was one thing. James McCutcheon Company had an ad for linen mesh underwear to be worn in the spring to keep you warm against the alternating cold and warm air. And that's about all they did about wearing clothes in those days, apparently. If they did, they didn't talk about it or write about it much. But, Leonard, you have a comment.
Well, in athletics, fashion extends mostly to shoes as far as weather is concerned, and it's a traditional story in many a football game. The most famous one in 1934 between the Giants and the Chicago Bears, in which the team came out on a muddy field for the second half wearing sneakers instead of cleats and roared on to victory because the other team was falling down in the mud.
You know, since you're so terribly concerned about the weather, and he told me that he really worries about it sometimes, especially if there's a New York team involved, what do you think of the weather as? Do you think of it as a personal thing, like a woman, for example? For instance, Mr. Frank Capra, in his latest film on television, calls the weather the unchained goddess and calls her meteor. Do you think of it as an unchained goddess?
No, I don't think of it as a goddess or a god, or just a condition of life.
Well,
and something to talk about.
It sure is something to talk about. Thank you very much, Leonard, and it's been a pleasure being here.
Well, with all the construction going on here in New York these days and the old landmarks being torn down to make way for glass skyscrapers, it's reassuring to know that tradition can live side by side with progress. Now, a case in point is the Music Hall's traditional Easter show, which is housed in one of those giant skyscrapers, as you well know. The Easter show has long been a must for native New Yorkers as well as from visitors from all over the country. And Frank Quinn, popular entertainment editor of the Daily Mirror, has a report on this annual pageant. Frank?
Thank you, Art, but we have with us the man behind the scene at the Music Hall, the vice president, senior producer of the world's largest theater and in charge of the world's largest stage, Mr. Leonidoff. Except I'm not sure how to pronounce the name. How is it, Leon?
Well, I think we better ask Bob Hope. He is now quite an expert on Russian pronunciations, and I think that would... I really believe it should be Leonidoff, but...
We'll remember Leonidoff then.
Right.
Leon, how long has the Glory of Easter been at the Music Hall?
I think that is the 26th year, Frank.
How many performances would you say that has given?
Well, wait a minute now. I need, well, it's 26. We run usually the Christmas show for about 5 weeks. Now, we play to
And
about...
the Easter show 5 weeks.
That's right.
About the same.
The show plays 4 shows a day. It's about 25,000 people a day. Now, that's about what? So about 140,000 people a week. Now, the rest of it you figure out.
I would say in 25 years, then, it's probably one of the longest running shows. Probably longer than Life with Father, Hell's a Poppin', Tobacco Road, South Pacific.
Yeah, I believe so. It is, yeah.
Tell me, Leon, what was the origin of Glory of Easter?
Well, I tell you, it's very amusing. It started out, I saw a few passion plays in Europe and here. And one day we were sitting down with Max Reinhardt, and I asked him a question if he thinks that he was preparing the miracle, I think, then. And I asked him if he think it would be a good idea to show a religious processional or religious number in the public theater of our kind. And he said he thought it would be a very good idea. So I talked it over with our staff, and the first thing that we did was in the Old Roxy, we put in the Last Supper. Well, first I thought it would be a little bit too crude to just present it as a number, so we presented in a form of a triptych.
What is that?
A triptych is a religious, well, it's not a toy, it's actually a religious box that has 2 little doors and it opens up, and we duplicate one that I found in Padua and Italy.
Oh, this you used too, the same idea in the Nativity. When
That's
you
right,
opened the door.
that's right. And then when we came to the Radio City Music Hall, the first thing we did is get together and build this Glory of Easter.
How many people perform in this?
There is about 200 and some odd people in the cast. The entire company participates in that.
I discovered a story. Of course, the Music Hall is famed internationally. I think the last figure I saw was something like 165 million people, which is practically the population of the United States have visited the Music Hall in the 25 years. I discovered that you had an audience with the Pope, and he commented on it. What were the circumstances?
When Pope Pius was Secretary of Vatican City, he came through the United States because they had a meeting, I think it was in Los Angeles. And I met him then through a friend of mine, which was the chief organist of the St. Patrick's Cathedral, Pedro Yon. And Pedro introduced me to him, and he came down to the Radio City Music Hall, and he saw the Glory of Easter. And the next time I went to Rome, Pedro Yon arranged an audition with Pope Pius.
Leon, I presume there might be one person who hasn't seen it. Shall we show him the photograph?
Yes, actually. This is approximately the final shot of the Glory of Easter.
Yeah, the forming of the cross.
Which is the formation of the cross with the white lilies by the kids. It opens up really with a processional of this choir moving up to the choral stairway on each side. And there is quite a Gothic kind of a form of procession.
It's beautiful. I've seen it almost for 25 years. Now, I'm glad you brought 2 girls from the other part of the show, the Russell Market production.
Well, you see, the second half of the show this year was produced by a colleague of mine, Russell Market, which, by the way, did a very good job out of the show. The second half, which is called, I think, In the Spring. Well, tell you the truth, you cannot talk about the Radio City Music Hall without bringing in the famous Rockettes. So I got a surprise for you. So they're just 2 pretty girls sitting down here, I hope.
Let's see, we have Mary Lou Smith on my left and Lorraine Rusty Hurley on the right. They're dressed as the girly birds. And when you see 36 Rockettes, they have no identity, but this is probably one of the few times.
No question, the pretty birds.
And they are pretty birds. And now I have a surprise for you, Leon. We have an alumna of the Music Hall Chorus who sang in last year's Easter pageant, the Glory of Easter.
Oh, yes.
This is Mary Tremaine. This is a lovely young girl, born in Japan, and left with her missionary parents, was educated in Mexico, and She was on your stage, and I caught her at the Monsignor.
Yeah.
And now she's going to sing a song from Finian's Rainbow.
Well, many kids were graduated from the Radio City Music Hall.
I know you have many stars, Leon.
On the day I was born, my father said he, I'm an elephant's legacy waiting for you. Rhyme for your lips, song for your heart, to sing it whenever the world goes by. Look, look, look to the rainbow, follow it over the hill and stream. Look, look to the rainbow, follow the sparrow who follows the tree. Why button your heart on my road were free, to the east, to the north, to the west. I searched all the earth, scattered the stars, but I found it at last in my own long heart. Look, look to the rainbow, follow it over the hill and stream. Look, look to the rainbow, follow the fellow who follows our dream. Follow the fellow, follow the fellow, follow the fellow who follows
Thanks, Mary. Thanks for that colorful Easter thought.